Benefits and problems. Dams, benefits and problems. So what is a dam? Can anyone tell me what is a dam?
Dam is an obstruction constructed to stop the flow of water, to store the
Right.
water.
Very good. Across the river, right? Absolutely true. Dam is a construction to stop the flow of water which is constructed across the river, right? To stop the water behind the dam, which is called as a reservoir, and other side there is a spillway. On the top there is floodgates, and the water falls the other side when the floodgates are open, and it falls on the turbines, right? So that is what. And benefits are like storage of water, beneficial for domestic, industrial, and agricultural supply year round, and transport of water from the area of excess to area of scarcity to avoid or minimize the impact of droughts, right? And agricultural practices can do food production, and even the stored water can be used for hydropower generation, right? Then flood control, yes, that stops the flow of water, right? Excess amount of water flow can stop. A huge velocity can be reduced by obstruction, so that can control the flood, but it also causes floods. So in the problem we'll discuss. Increases water table, because the surrounding area water is stored, that stored water will seepage and percolate into the surrounding grounds, and groundwater table increases. This will also cause a problem, we'll discuss that. Then ecological balance, due to good growth of plants and trees and habitation in the surrounding areas of that reservoir, because of increased groundwater table and soil moisture, right? Then inland navigation. Then what else we have discussed? Tour, educational tour, recreation, employment, economy, and even these reservoirs serve as an aquarium for the conservation of aquatic animals which are unable to survive in the natural environment, right? So these are few of the points. And then problems: acquiring a land area. Like once we decide, I mean, we need to select the site suitable for the construction of a dam and storage of water, then deforestation of that land, then acquiring the land from the people, right? And a resettlement of the people. Then if we have any tribal in that area, resettlement and rehabilitation of the tribals has to be done, right? And loss of large capital investment is required for the construction of a dam. Investment in many areas, it may increase the burden by some other factors, like if a mountain or hilly region is there nearby, that has to be removed, right? So all that has to be done. Then loss of vegetation, directly plants and trees are being cut from that area. Deforestation can harm the environment and slightly change the environmental quality, that is detrimental, adverse impacts on the environment. And then oxygen level will decrease, and the CO2 levels will be increasing as well because of the loss of vegetation. And then loss of biodiversity, that is plants and animals will die in that area, because plants, directly we are cutting down the plants and trees, they are lost, and animals taking shelter of that particular area and trees will also be lost, because they have to be moved from that area to the other parts of the forest, or into the cities, due to human activity, which is called as human induced migrations, and which results in introduction of non-native species, that is exotic species, right? Non-native. And in that way, that competition for the food and survival and exchange of diseases will occur, and some of the living beings will die. And endemic species, that is the species which are particularly restricted to grow in a particular area, and they will not grow anywhere in the world or any similar habitat any corner of the world, right? So such living beings will permanently be lost, and we lose a benefit out of them. They are called as endemic species lost. And loss of fertility and mineral, soil fertility and embedded minerals if present will be permanently lost, because that land will be used for storing water and construction of a dam. Then increased air pollution due to construction of dam activity, like usage of high quantities of cement, crushers and machinery, all that, and use burning of fossil fuels. And not only that, human settlements can cause water and soil pollution too. Then loss of nutrients to downstreams, as the minerals and salts will get settled in the reservoir as silting, causing loss of water storage capacity and loss of nutrients to downstream, which increases the salinity of the water, and even it causes waterlogging, which also can cause salinity by storing or accumulation or stagnation of water in a particular area, and even serve as a breeding site for vectors. And it also causes floods, like a dam break can definitely cause floods, and even the backflow of water, right? The backflow of water uh, is nothing but when water gets accumulated in the rivers in excess quantity, or beyond that dam wall in the reservoir in excess quantity, the water level raises there, right? The groundwater level, because of the stored water, the groundwater level raises. If there any area in the upstream where the low lying, that is the land level, is below the water level, which is raised because of excess rainfall or excess accumulation of water in the reservoirs, that can cause the low lying areas in the upstream can also be flooded, which can call backflow of water. And even the water moves through the ground into the developed areas in low lying, and even it can submerge the total sewer lines in that area because of excess groundwater, increased groundwater table. The total sewer lines and all that water will get choked in the low lying areas in the upstream, which is called as backflow of water, right? Then waterlogging and salinity, we discussed silting, loss of water storing capacity, then breeding site for vectors, change of earth rotation, as there is a huge weight of water and dam on one piece of a land. It exerts a pressure on the land and can cause changes in the earth's rotation, and even that can cause a tremors and land subsidence, tremors and vibrations in the land, and can cause earthquakes. And definitely, whenever the dam construction occurs, it causes conflicts over water if too many authorities are sharing the same water, like two regions or two cities or two states or two countries, right? Then aquatic plant growth, right? Because the water logging and salinity and the loss of nutrients to downstream, the nutrients will be stored in the reservoir, and salinity occurs in the reservoir, that causes excess growth of the plants, aquatic plants, and that plants can disturb the functioning of floodgates and turbines and can cause maintenance problems. So this is what we discuss, benefits and problems of dam. Today we will discuss about modern agriculture techniques. Okay, so today's new topic is modern agriculture techniques. So before we start this topic, what is modernization of agriculture? That means something is advanced. From where? From traditional. So what is traditional or conventional method of agricultural practice? The traditional is simple, using bullock carts, I mean bulls or buffaloes or humans, right? For plowing the field, plower is made up of wood and iron. Then the same is system is used to sow the seeds. Then manually people do the irrigation process, or many other traditional methods like taking the water and pouring it manually, right? Everything includes human and animal power. Then removal of weeds, kalpunivarana, manually people do that. Then harvesting, they cut the field manually, then bang the bundle of branches holding these grains, bang on the ground, and that is how they separate the seeds, or allow the cattle to walk on them, and that is how they separate the seeds, and manually they clean them, pack them, and send them to the market, right? This is what traditional method of agriculture practice. Then what is modernization of it? Students, I gave you the information or a brief note on what is traditional method of agriculture practice. I want you to speak about what is modern agricultural technique. Modernization or advanced technique? Don't be silent, my dear students. Simple question, isn't it?
Using advanced equipment for farming.
Very good. Advanced equipments like one or two examples, or in general?
Tractor,
Right, my dear. We can say tractors for
tractor,
plowing, then sawing, then tilling, right? Then harvesters, right? Same tractors may contain harvesters, or separate harvesters are provided, right? So on the whole, we can say using machinery, right? In the field of agriculture practice, people are using machinery. One thing, then plowing, tilling, plowing, then what we say, sowing seeds, and then irrigation comes. Any change in the irrigation system? You gave this
yes
answer.
sir, drip irrigation.
మీరే ఆన్సర్
Drip
చెప్పారు అప్పట్లో. డ్రిప్ అండ్ స్ప్రింకిల్ ఇరిగేషన్ టెక్నిక్స్ హ్యావ్ came into existence, and advanced multi-cropping and mulching also came into existence. Mulching is older traditional. It has been slightly improvised to suit the current situations, right? Like material, like polythene is used instead of fiber materials, right? Jute and all natural. Nowadays, people are using fiber as this polythene cover, mulching, right? Then harvesters. Still, anything else is there? Any change in the plant system? Using
Hybrid
hybridized,
Hybrid
plants.
plants.
very good, my dear. Using hybridized varieties, and then finally pesticides and fertilizers, right? Fertilizers and pesticides is nothing but modernization of agriculture techniques. Has got advantages as well as disadvantages, but we will see at the end of the topic which one weighs more as an advantage or disadvantage. Advantage is using machinery, we can do a lot of work, and within a short period of time. That means a huge land area can be plowed, sawed, harvested in the short time by using machinery. That is an advantage, right? I say that's an advantage, reducing the time and effort of human efforts, right? We can use machinery, sit, one person can sit and do a lot of work over there. And the disadvantage is what I compare with the same is that is machinery. First thing is loss of employment. Many people are not allowed to do this. I mean, working, that work is done by a machinery, so people are jobless and they are coming to the cities, urban areas for work, and villages are getting empty nowadays, right? And people have stopped working, right? So that is one thing. So loss of employment, and skills have to be improved. That is, people in olden days, just by couple of days they can learn how to do all these. I mean, weeds, removal of weeds, all that. No skilled specific skills are required. But now, using a tractor, I mean, driving a tractor, using it in the field, and harvesters, all that needs a technical skills. And then the competition for the fuel, right? I mean, in the olden time, country spends fuel on transportation and industrial sector, but now it demands, I mean, even the agriculture sector demands fuel, because usage of machinery, they work with the fuel. That is one thing, so which causes increase of the burden on the fuel, country's fuel demand, and then which causes increase of the price of the fuel. And then the fuel is burnt, more amount of fuel is burnt. Even the agriculture sector is burning fuel and causing pollution of the air at the place where the food is being generated, right? Basic food is generated there, the pollution is being generated, right? Then, yeah, this is one thing. And then usage of fertilizers and pesticides, right? We will discuss that. What are fertilizers? Come on, students, what are fertilizers? Any material which,
They are used to increase the production of the yield.
Beautiful, perfect answer. Right. I go with one step, intermediate step, but you have directly reached the answer. Okay, let me cover it so people can understand what is that one step. Fertilizer, fertilizes. Which fertilizes is called as a fertilizer. What is fertilizes? The soil and land is getting fertilizes, right? And which what is fertilizing? A material or a chemical or a compound or a substance which improves the fertility of the soil or enhances the fertility of the soil or increases the fertility of the soil or land is called as fertilizer, which increases fertility. What is fertility? Fertility is nothing but the materials which are helped for the plant condition, good condition. What is good condition of the plant? Growth. Right. What is needed for the growth of the plant? Energy. What is the energy? How does energy comes from? The what plant eats, food, or what we call as nutrients, right? So the nutrient content of the soil is nothing but fertility of the soil, right? What is that nutrient content? What is for that nutrient content is needed? For good condition of the plant, that is growth of the plant. What does growth means? Is it the size of the plant? Okay, a plant can increase or grow to a height of 5 to 10 feet, but it doesn't bear any fruits or vegetables, or very few. But a plant grows less than 5 feet, but it bears many number of fruits and vegetables of same kind. So which one has got more importance to us? The one growing very large, or one which is bearing more fruits and vegetables? Absolutely the one which bearing more fruits and vegetables. So what is that? Fruits and vegetables are of more important to us. We are concerned about those things, right? What we call that, it is not growth, it is yield. Yield means productivity. We are interested in production of the plant, productivity. Either it could be fruits, vegetables, leaves, or flowers, anything. So what is that plant productivity? Is the production of the plant yield. On what factors it is dependent? It is dependent on the nutrient factors of the soil. So nutrient factor of the soil is a productive capacity of the soil. What is that production? The yield capacity of the soil, right? How much yield it can give from that, for any plant from that soil, is called as productive capacity. So ultimately, what is fertilizers? Any material, substance, compounds which can improve the fertility of the soil or land, and that fertility is nothing but productive capacity of the soil or land. Productive capacity of the soil is called as fertilizers. And these fertilizers are of two types. One is natural and another one is synthetic, right? Natural means which are available naturally in the environment. They are naturally formed, right? We don't make them. Synthetic means we prepare, manufacture, synthesize them in the laboratories, chemical factories like pharmaceutical industries, right? So these natural are again categorized into organic and inorganic. Synthetic example is urea, what is prepared in the factories like NH double bond NH, urea, right? And what is natural? Naturally again categorized into organic and inorganic, right? What is organic? Right, organic means where the biodegradable waste or life or hydrocarbons are included, right? Inorganic, the materials which are naturally generated from non-living or like nature, I mean rocks, right? Generally rocks contain these minerals, and when the rock weathering occurs, they are added to the soil. So now let us come to organic natural fertilizers. Animal waste. Example, we can say cow dung, right? Only cow dung is considered as organic natural fertilizer. No, any animal like even buffaloes or poultry dropping, pig droppings, or any other animal waste. That's why animal waste, not only cow dung. It is auspicious in our country, so we call cow dung, right? So animal waste can serve as organic natural fertilizer. Sure, yes, agreed. Yes, agreed. We studied in the books, so we are agreed about it. No, we need to justify. I will justify the statement. How we can say that, yes, uh, animal waste can serve as an organic natural fertilizer. That is, What is, we'll go in the reverse engineering, organic, this animal waste, what it contains, from where it is generated from a animal, right? A buffalo or a cow. What is the source? Animal defecates it. When it has, by a process of digestion, the waste materials are left which are being defecated, which is called as feces or animal waste. What is this process of digestion? The process of digestion involves in the generation of energy for the animal. From where energy comes to the animal? When it consumes a material called as a food, it gets energy by the process of glycolysis and Krebs cycle. What is the food for animal? It is nothing but leaves, grass, and all grains and branches, twigs, right? Everything which is nothing but plant material. So ultimately, plant material serves as food for the animal, and when it eats and goes through a process of digestion, the energy is liberated and the waste material, the byproduct, is left over, right? That is called as animal waste. So what is again food for the plant? How does a plant grows in the nature? It too need energy from the nature, soil. What is the energy from the soil which plants take up? What is that energy plants depend on? Nutrients, right? Same thing, fertility, just now what we spoke. Nutrients are needed for the plants to grow. What are that nutrients? Micro and macronutrients. Macro means the nutrients which are required in the large quantity. Micro means the nutrients which are required in the small quantities. Macro ante NPK, simple thing. Just remember this, NPK, right? Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. These are macronutrients, and micro means we have plenty like iron, manganese oxide, calcium, magnesium, right? All these are nothing but the macronutrients which are required in small quantities, right? So these are nutrients which are there in the soil, and the plant while growing, it takes these materials and that grows. So this is energy source. So what plant contains? It contains same thing, micro and macronutrients. So these micro and macronutrients are developed into a plant which is a stable system. That is why it is called as a stable, a complex, right? So this is eaten up by an animal and it goes through a process called as digestion. And what is the process of digestion? It is a biochemical process of catabolic activity. What is catabolic activity? Catabolism means breakdown of complex food materials or complex materials into simpler form. What is complex? The plant material. Why it is complex? Because it is stable bonds, right? So to break the stable bonds, some energy is needed first of all. So in the glycolysis also we use some energy, and after that we harvest energy at the end, more amount, right? So that is the process of digestion, catabolic activity, conversion of complex into simple. So what was a complex? Micro and macronutrients build up in the form of a stable plant was a complex. Now it is broken down into simpler micro and macronutrients in a animal waste by a process of digestion, which is now readily available for the plants to be absorbed. Simpler form, plants can easily absorb. So surely, yes, we can say animal waste is an organic natural fertilizer because it contains same macro and micronutrients need for the support of plant growth, right? So next, agricultural waste, same plant material again, right? But here these are agricultural waste, not eaten up by the animal. They are just left in the field or on the ground, like leaf litter, dead plants, dead plant material, leaf litter, or a waste residue of the agricultural residue. How does it gets used by the plants of next generation? Because it is the same stable one, right? So this one also has to get converted from complex to simpler form. That process is called as decomposition. Why? Because it is carried out by the micro and macro organisms, micro and macro flora of the fauna of the soil, right? The microorganisms like bacteria, fungus, protozoans, nematodes, insects, all these can do the Decomposition process. What is decomposition? Conversion of complex into simpler material is nothing but decomposition. The digestion process in the insects and microorganisms is called decomposition. So same thing is occurring. The plants are getting converted from complex to simpler form, and these materials are added by the insects. Like when they eat, they excrete. Excreta contain simpler materials, and animals gain energy, and that is organisms gain energy, and they survive. Right, worms, insects, all that can excrete by feeding on these dead materials. Right, so that is also, we can say, agricultural waste is also organic natural fertilizer. One more thing, one more way is there, that is how agricultural waste is added. Not always it is left like that to degrade. Sometimes it is burnt. The residue for agricultural residue remains will be burnt, so that they are adding ash, and ash is nothing but a very good carbon source, enriches the soil and can give good energy or fertility of the soil. And biodegradable waste means biodegradable municipal solid waste, or kitchen waste, or household waste, or fruit yard waste, or anything, the waste which contains organic material or biodegradable material. What happens with this also gets converted. Sometimes we do naturally, we do, or sometimes it occurs naturally in the soil. Whenever these dead materials, just like plant leaf, falling in the soil, they get decomposed and degraded, right? Decomposed by uh, microorganisms and all other living beings, and ultimately converted from complex to simpler form and added to the soil as a nutrient source for the next generation of plants and animals, right? So this process of biodegradable conversion, material conversion, is called as compost, which can be done by microorganisms or protozoans or fungus, right, which growing fungus, or insects, or even the flies, or birds, or frogs, so on and so forth, or worms, right, is called as a compost. If we involve worms to do that composting of biodegradable material, what do we call that process?
Vermicompost.
Very good, my dear. Beautiful. Vermicompost, right? So any other animals or insects can also do that composting. Composting means what? Feed on this decaying material, that is biodegradable material, get the energy and defecate that. The defecation consists of simple form of energy, right? But has got something more, my dear, that has got a cementing material, cementing particles, or a material which can hold the soil particles, right? So that is another thing I will discuss. Here there is one drawback, all are adding organic natural fertilizer, that is, if the previous crop has infected with any disease, the same disease will be carried to the next crop, because there is no sterilization or a killing of a parasite is occurring, pest is occurring with this material, except in the process of burning the crop residue. By burning all the insects which cause germs, which cause the disease for the previous crop, would be killed totally, and a new fresh carbon material is added. Whereas in the other process, if the organism can pass through the digestive system, it can be adding new contamination to the next crop also, right? So that is one thing. Then next is inorganic material. Yes, the sodium nitrate, rock phosphate, and limestone, gypsum, sodium chloride, all these materials, right? Calcium, all these nutrients, minerals, right, which are there in the soil as a soil content, as a rock content, right? Slowly by weathering of the rock added to the soil, and which will be again available in the simple form for the plants to be absorbed, and plants can use them and can grow, right? So they are inorganic natural fertilizers. And then synthetic urea, synthetic fertilizers. Synthetic fertilizers means urea, NH double bond NH, simple, easily absorbable by the plants. Plants can easily absorb them and use them and grow very well by absorbing this, right? So, and it is very easy. You can manufacture in it pharmaceutical industries, but generates little amount of pollution and waste. Huge wastewater is being generated when the urea fertilizers are manufactured, right? So this is simple synthetic material. Then what is the problem? I'll give you a simple example. When we use this organic natural fertilizer, it is time consuming process because it is natural, needs some time to degrade, degradation, decomposition, digestion, all these processes, biochemical conversion of complex into simple needs some time, and even some time has to be given for these organisms which has to, I mean, get habituated to that environment and start feeding them and convert that material. So some time taking process, right? So even in inorganic natural fertilization, the materials to be used is takes little bit of time. Whereas urea, very quickly plant can absorb it very quickly, my dear, because it is available in the easily, readily available form for the plant, right? No need of any conversion, right? So what is the problem? That is the benefit, my dear, right? It can be easily, and the addition can also be done easily, but should avoid personal contact, right? That's it. What's the problem? Okay, just now I said when we continuously put this urea to the soil, right, will there be any life in the soil? That is, microorganisms and other insects will survive? No, definitely not. Why? Because when we are putting this urea, what is the use of microorganisms? Because there is no microorganisms and no other organic material is added. So since organic material serves as energy source for the microorganisms, because no organic material, no microorganisms survive, we are directly putting the urea. So plants are taking up that, and there is no need of any decomposition or digestion process. Slowly the life content of that biota of the soil will decrease, and no microflora will be there in that. No micro and macro flora and fauna will be there. Only people are directly adding energy source, right? So once that life is absent, the cementing property of the particles of the soil will be lost, right? Cementing property and TNT, the dust particles which can hold the soil firmly and it can maintain the moisture for longer time will not be there. So soil becomes loose enough and it becomes starts evaporating at a quicker rate. The rate of evaporation increases, so simultaneously the ground or soil starts demanding more water, so it becomes more water dependent or more water demanding soils, right? So excess amount of water is needed for irrigation purpose now. And one more thing, when the soil is loose enough, it will not hold the root system firmly, right? It spreads out easily, and sometimes the plant will fall down, doesn't give enough compact strength or holding strength to the plant, and plants will not be holded longer up, or it will be uprooted. The plants will be uprooted very quickly, and even the soil will get eroded by a small breeze or rain, and even the plants will be uprooted easily by a even small breeze or a rain, right? And then soil becomes totally urea dependent, that is synthetic fertilizer dependent. If we stop using synthetic fertilizer, the soil will die. That means it becomes a barren land and degraded because it has lost its capacity to rejuvenate on its own and build up the fertility of the soil. So these are the problem. And one more problem is when farmers put more amount of these fertilizers, right? And why do they put more amount? Because they think if they put more amount of fertilizers, more yield will be generated. So once they put more amount of fertilizers in the field, these plants are not intelligent like humans, my dear. Whatever, if we like any dish and if it is very precious, we will try to eat more than our, I mean, capacity, right? Beyond the capacity, at least one or two bites excess to satisfy our trust, right? Satisfaction. Whereas plant doesn't do that. It takes how much is needed. It's innocent, right? Not intelligent like us. So, but one thing, plant, if it finds anything in more concentration or in more quantity in the environment which is needed for it, it would like to store, right, for the future purpose. Where it can store? Okay, put this question aside. You tell me, how does a plant will survive? I mean, how does it increase its population? What we call vegetative propagation. Any genes in this environment want to increase its number, right? Even human psychology. So how does plant does that? Vegetative propagation, reproduction of the plants through the seeds, right? The seed germinate into a new plant, right? So it always bears seeds, right? And seeds should go somewhere else and fall and develop into a new plant. Is it occur naturally? Sometimes it occurs because of the rain or water or air or anything else, but mostly it occurs because of animals and birds and humans, right? They take the seeds and throw it somewhere else. What benefit they get? They are attracted, they should attract towards the plant tree to take the seed and throw it somewhere else. So plant bears fruits and fruits bear seeds, right? So plant gives fruits by growing pulp and goose and embedded seeds, that is they put the seeds in that, so that people and animals and birds are getting attracted towards the fruits. They eat and they throw or they defecate the seeds in some other place, and that is how the plant or tree vegetative propagation will occur. So what it stores in this goose or a pulp of a fruit, it stores vitamins and minerals, right, which are more available, more than the requirement of the plant growth. It absorbs energy, right? It puts that energy in growing of the plant, and then excess energy which is available will be used to store in the fruits. So whatever material available in the excess in the soil will be kept in the fruits. Even if it is fertilizers, it will be kept in the fruits in excess quantity, right? Now the fruits are still contains proteins, vitamins, and also fertilizers if we put them in more quantity in the soil. Not only fertilizers, even something else we will discuss next. So in this way, putting more fertilizers and pesticides, fertilizers in the soil can harm the soil, can also harm the food quality and plant growth also, right? So, and even the soil becomes more saline because of high salt concentration, like macronutrient concentration more in excess quantity in the soil can become more saline and can degrade the quality of the soil. So this is what fertilizer problem. And similarly pesticide, will come back to here by taking pesticide topic. What are pesticides? Can anyone tell this answer? Pesticides are nothing but the chemicals or substances or materials or compounds which are used to control or kill the pest, right? Which are used to kill or control the pest. What are pests now? What are pests? Pest is a living being which can harm the physical well-being of other living being is called as a pest. A living being which can cause adverse impacts on the other living being is called as a pest, right? Yes, a pesticides are substances that are meant to control pest. A living being which affects the well-being of other living being is known as pest. And depending on the type of pest they are controlling, these pesticides are of different types. Like if it controls the bacteria, it is called bactericidal. Controls fungus, called fungicidal. Herbicides or weedicide if it controls plants. Insecticide if it controls insects like mosquitoes. If it controls mosquitoes, we use mosquito repellent, all out and all that. They are insecticides. And then snails are snails, right, which controls molluscide. And nematodes are controlled by nematodicide or nematicide. Nematodes are worms, like not only earthworms, even millipedes, centipedes, and all that worms. And rodenticides control the growth of rodents. Rodents are burrowing animals like rat and mice, right? So they are called as burrowing animals. So depending on the type of a pest they are acting, these chemicals are of different terminology. So this is what a pesticide. What is a problem usage of pesticide? They are good because they are saving the yield, they are saving the crop. Yes, my dear, once we spray the pesticide on the plant or a tree, we generally spray it through a small distance between the sprayer nozzle and the plant. So not all the sprayed, that is material, falls on the plant, but it gets into the air, remains airborne, and can cause air pollution, and it can spread and cause diseases to other people, right? That is one thing. And another one is when these pesticides are sprayed on the plant, right? So if they are not properly cleaned before eating them, like not properly rinsed, that pesticide may contaminate the food or a person who is eating and can cause abnormalities in that people, right? And sometimes we see that when the freshly pesticide is sprayed on the crop, and that crop is been fed by birds like peacocks, peahens, or swans, or say this what we say cranes or other birds, a huge number of birds are dead. We see such kind of news oftenly because of this pesticide. Why? Because pesticide is a chemical, it doesn't have a common sense, it cannot know which insect or living being is harmful and to kill, and which is non-harmful and to be not to kill, right? So in that way, pesticide can kill both the living beings, even the non-target living being like insects and birds, which are helpful for the plant growth, like some insects needed for the pollination of the plants, right? To have vegetables and fruits, not only the flowers. So that pollination is done by help of honeybees. Sometimes, generally, water, rain, and air can do that. But sometimes, mostly, that pollination is done by honeybees, butterflies, other flies, dragonflies, birds, sparrows, so on and so forth. Oh, so these animals, insects, and living beings are also being killed by pesticide. So non-target living beings are being killed. And if we put more amount of pesticides on the plant, which may enter into the soil or through the plant stomatal openings or any cell openings, the plant thinks that these materials are also safe and they are available in more quantity for the protection of the plant, and will also be helpful for the protection of the next generation of plants, that is the fruits and seeds. So even these pesticides will also be taken into the fruits and will be stored along with fertilizers. And these pesticides are non-biodegradable, they cannot be degraded by the digestive system. So once a person or a animal or a living being feeds on this material which is being contaminated with these pesticides, right, that material compound will enter into that living being. So this process of entering of toxic chemicals into biological system is called as bioamplification. Bio means life, amplification means entering of chemicals into living systems, life, right? So that is any chemical, even the plastic material nowadays, my dear, that is the reason why many people are suffering with cancers. They are causing cancers. The pesticides and plastics are carcinogenic cells, I mean cell development chemicals, right? Carcinogenic. So how they are entering, they are becoming very minute particles, nano-sized particles, or they dissolve in water, and along with the water they enter into plants or microorganisms, and from there to the next level of the living beings into the food chain, right? So once they are entering into the biological system, they are called as bioamplification. And once they enter, they, because they are non-biodegradable, they are not getting degraded, right? They are getting eliminated from the body as an excreta. So if they are not totally eliminated, if say suppose a person or some animal eats a contaminated food and infected with 1 milligram of some toxic chemical, so zero point 0.5 milligram may be excreted out and 0.5 milligram may be stored in the body, some parts, right? So again, So this part is getting accumulated, stored in the body. It is not getting totally eliminated. That process is called as a bioaccumulation, right? Because it is getting accumulated, bioaccumulation. And once it is getting accumulated, and once the same living being or a person feeds on the same contaminated food, the same content of the chemical, toxic chemical, will start increasing in the body. Accumulation will continuously increase. Instead of 0.5, it will become 1 or 5 or 10 milligrams, and then it will start showing the symptoms and cause diseases like cancers and other infections, right? So this process of increasing the concentration of chemical in the biological system is called as biomagnification. Magnification ante increasing in the concentration of toxic chemicals in the biological system and causing adverse impacts. Concentration of toxic chemicals or materials in the biological system is causing adverse impacts, is called bioamplification. I have a beautiful example, DDT, right? What is DDT? I'll take 2 to 3 minutes. Don't feel that I'm eating away your time, but this is more important. It can give you a good concept, my dear.
Dichlorodimethyl terephthalate, sir.
No, my dear. It is
Dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane.
ethene, right? Very good. Dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane. Very good. Not a problem, because you might have studied long time, and that's chances of missing the terms, right? Simple thing. So this DDT was invented actually by a German scientist, Zedler, right, in around 1873, right? 1873 invented, he synthesized this chemical, and then he left. There was no much importance of this chemical. But in 1936, again, a 37-year-old scientist called as a Paul Hermann Muller, right, resynthesized the same material by taking idea from the old scientist, German scientist. He resynthesized, and he identified that it has got a germicidal quality. This DDT, it was manufactured easily. It was a simple white amorphous powder he synthesized, and it was used for that particular time. That is, in before 1936, we had a First World War, second to us, but first to world. So First World War, and the number of people died in the First World War during the war was less compared to the people died after the war. Can you please tell me what could be the reason? The people died during the war was less compared to the people died after the war is less. People died during the war is less compared to the people died after the war. The reason is?
Disease, food scarcity.
No. Yeah, food scarcity, yes, we can say. What disease?
Flu, sir, Spanish flu, something flu.
Spanish flu that came, long back. Long after that war. But immediately after the war, right, the number of deaths were more. Immediately after the war was stopped and everything was better, but people were still dying. The soldiers were still dying. Soldiers were still dying. Not just the civilian soldiers. The reason is because of the cuts on the body, injuries, minor injuries like scratches, cuts, caused death of the people, soldiers. Why? Because if anything, any cut or any injury occurs to us, what we will do immediately? We'll go and take a TT injection, right? Tetanus. Why do we take TT injection? To avoid sepsis, septic, right? So at that time there was no TT and no other medicine. So people were just leaving their wounds, cleaning it with water and soap maybe. So in that way, all that infections, the minor cuts or puncture or scratches on the skin got developed into a wound, right? And then why the bacteria is always there in the air and it searches for energy, and this is an opening. The body is protected by a skin and inside is the energy, right? So once that bacteria enters that entry, it finds, it starts developing its colony. It grows. How do we represent growth in a bacteria? How do we represent growth in a bacteria? They doesn't grow in size, they grow in number, right? They grow in number, their colony increases, and what we call their colony is pus. Pus formation will occur, and slowly the dead cells will increase. The bacteria is eating the live cells, turning them into dead and giving the waste material, which acts as again poison and can cause death of other cells also. So slowly, all the cells will die, the more pus will generate, and it becomes a wound. Small injury turned into a wound, and after that slowly it will turn into a big wound called as gangrene and causes poisoning of that body and can kill the people. In that way many people were killed. So watching this, the Paul Muller gave this white powder of DDT to each soldier and asked, if you have any minor injuries, apply this powder. It's germicidal. It will not allow any germs to grow. In that way, many soldiers were saved, right? And Paul Muller was awarded with Nobel Prize. Not the person who first synthesized, but the person who synthesized it second time, but identified its germicidal quality. And after that, people identified its pesticidal quality and started using it everywhere to control malaria in agricultural fields and everywhere. Yeah. 1 minute, students. Do you have any class after this at 3 o'clock? Anyone can respond.
No, sir.
Right. I will take 5 or 10 minutes excess, not more than that. Please excuse me today. Right. So I will continue. So that chemical, that DDT, was extensively used as a pesticide also in the agricultural field throughout the world, everywhere. Even in India, you might have seen, but I've seen when any national festival occurs, the white powder is sprayed on the shoulders of roads or municipal dustbin yards, right? In olden days, they used to spray DDT. Nowadays, they are spraying bleaching powder. Even in the ponds to avoid mosquito population, everywhere DDT was used extensively, right? So after some time, what happened is DDT was started spreading everywhere in the air, water, and soil. And one of the scientists, scientific writer, has written a book called as Silent Spring. The name of the scientist is Rachel Carson. She wrote a book explaining the evil or ill effects of this DDT, extensively or excessively usage of DDT throughout the world, and explained what it is making, like causing cancer in many people, and many cancer patients are increasing nowadays in the world because of this usage of DDT everywhere. And she explained that this DDT slowly entered into the soil, water. From there it entered into the living beings through process called as biomagnification and started causing cancer. And then in 1967, she wrote this book called as Silent Spring, explaining the evil effects of DDT. Then the rest of the world have stopped, banned this DDT, but after a long time, India has stopped it or banned it. So now you can find this DDT in India, not in the laboratory or drugstore, but Indian people blood, you can find the DDT. So this is how the biomagnification will occur, right? Next topic is waterlogging and salinity. I will explain it in the next class. I think I have not taken any time excess. I have asked for. I don't want it anyway because I have done the topic. This topic I will do it in the next class. If you have any doubts, you can raise and allow me to take your attendance. Yeah, my dear, allow me to take your attendance. Right? Is the topic clear? You have any doubts? ECB. I will take the numbers. I will read out absentees number